Chapter 1. Little Michelle in Chicago. Michelle Robinson was born on January 17th, 1964, in a small house on the south side of Chicago. It wasn't a fancy house, but it was filled with love and warmth. Michelle's parents, Fraser and Marion, worked hard to make a good life for their two children. They didn't have much money, but they believed in giving their kids everything that truly mattered: love, values, and the belief that education could change lives. Michelle shared a tiny bedroom with her older brother, Craig. The room was so small that her bed was pushed up against the wall, leaving just enough space for Craig's bed on the other side. They used a curtain to separate their beds and give each other privacy. Even though it was cramped, Michelle loved it. She and Craig were best friends. They talked and laughed late into the night, whispering so their parents wouldn't hear. Craig always made her feel safe, even when the world outside their small home felt uncertain. The neighborhood wasn't perfect. It was noisy, crowded, and sometimes dangerous. Michelle saw buildings falling apart and streets that weren't always clean. But to her, it was home. On summer days, kids played basketball in the park, and neighbors sat on their front steps, chatting and laughing. Michelle's parents always said, "We're a family, and we take care of each other." That's what mattered most. Fraser Robinson worked as a pump operator at the city water plant. It was a tough job, and Fraser had a tough life. He had multiple sclerosis, a disease that made it harder and harder for him to walk. Some days, his legs hurt so much that he needed crutches to get around. But Fraser never complained. Every morning, he got up early, dressed in his uniform, and went to work. He believed in showing strength for his family. "If I can work hard," he said, "so can you." Marion Robinson stayed home to care for Michelle and Craig. She made sure they ate healthy meals and helped them with their homework. Marion was strict but kind. She believed in discipline and respect. When Michelle and Craig argued, Marion didn't raise her voice. Instead, she'd say calmly, "Figure it out. You're brother and sister. You'll need each other." Michelle's parents also believed in education. They wanted their children to dream big. They didn't have college degrees, but they knew that education was the key to a better life. Fraser and Marion told Michelle and Craig stories about great leaders and hard workers. "You can do anything," they said, "if you work hard and believe in yourself." Michelle loved school. She was curious and full of energy. In first grade, she came home and told her parents, "I want to learn everything." Marion smiled and nodded. "Then you'll have to work for it, Michelle," she said. And Michelle did. She worked hard at school, even when other kids teased her for being a bookworm. She ignored them. Michelle loved to read and learn. But things weren't always easy. Michelle went to schools where most kids didn't have big dreams. Some of her classmates didn't care about grades. Others thought it was strange that Michelle studied so much. But Michelle didn't let that stop her. She had a secret weapon: her family. Every night at dinner, Fraser and Marion asked about school. "What did you learn today?" they'd ask. and Michelle would proudly tell them about her classes. Her parents listened carefully, always encouraging her to keep going. One day, Michelle came home upset. A teacher had told her, "You're aiming too high. You shouldn't try for the best schools." Michelle's heart sank. Was she really not good enough? That night, she told her parents what the teacher had said. Fraser's face grew serious. "Listen to me, Michelle," he said. "Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can't do. You're smart, and you can do anything you put your mind to." Michelle never forgot those words. By the time she was in high school, Michelle was determined to succeed. She wanted to go to college and prove that she could achieve great things. But it wasn't just about proving something to others. Michelle wanted to make her parents proud. She knew how much they had sacrificed for her and Craig. She wanted to show them that their hard work had been worth it. Michelle studied harder than ever in high school. She joined activities, helped classmates, and made her voice heard. When it was time to apply to colleges, she set her sights on Princeton University, one of the best schools in the country. Some people doubted her. "You won't fit in there," they said. But Michelle didn't listen. She filled out her application, wrote her essays, and hoped for the best. When the acceptance letter from Princeton arrived, Michelle could hardly believe it. She ran to show her parents, who hugged her tightly. "We knew you could do it," they said. Michelle felt proud, but also nervous. Princeton was far from home, and she knew it would be different from everything she had ever known. Would she be able to handle it? Leaving Chicago for Princeton was a big step. For the first time, Michelle was surrounded by people who didn't look like her or come from neighborhoods like hers. At first, she felt out of place. The other students came from wealthy families, and Michelle sometimes felt like she didn't belong. But she reminded herself of her father's words. "You can do anything." Michelle worked hard at Princeton, just as she had in Chicago. She studied late into the night, joined groups on campus, and made friends. Slowly, she found her voice. Princeton helped her see the world in new ways. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. Looking back, Michelle often thought about her childhood in Chicago. She thought about her father's strength, her mother's wisdom, and the lessons they had taught her. They had given her the tools to dream big and work hard. She carried those lessons with her wherever she went. Her story was just beginning. But Michelle knew one thing for sure. No matter where life took her, she would never forget where she came from. Chicago wasn't just a place. It was her foundation, her strength, and her reminder that even the smallest beginnings can lead to incredible journeys. Could a little girl from Chicago really change the world? Michelle was ready to find out. 2. A family that believed. Michelle Robinson grew up in a family that believed in hard work, respect, and the power of education. Her parents, Fraser and Marion, weren't wealthy, but they were rich in love and determination. They taught Michelle and her brother Craig that if you worked hard and stayed focused, anything was possible. Those words stayed with Michelle for the rest of her life. Fraser Robinson, Michelle's father, was a man of quiet strength. He worked as a pump operator for the city water plant. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was steady, and it provided for his family. Fraser was proud of his work, even though he faced a difficult challenge every day. He had multiple sclerosis, a disease that slowly made his body weaker. Walking became hard for him. Some days, his legs felt like they wouldn't move at all. But Fraser never complained. He got up every morning, put on his uniform, and went to work. "You don't quit just because something is hard," he told his children. Those words became a lesson that Michelle carried with her throughout her life. Marion Robinson was the heart of the family. She stayed home to take care of Michelle and Craig, making sure they had everything they needed. Marion was wise and patient. She didn't raise her voice or lose her temper. Instead, she taught her children through quiet discipline. When Michelle and Craig argued, Marion would step in with a calm but firm voice. "You two need to work it out," she'd say. "You're brother and sister. You'll always have each other." Michelle learned to value family even during tough times because of her mother's steady guidance. Education was a top priority in the Robinson household. Fraser and Marion didn't have college degrees, but they knew how important school was for their children's future. "Work hard," they told Michelle and Craig, "and you can do anything." Michelle took those words to heart. She studied for hours every night, even when the neighborhood was noisy or distractions were all around. Sometimes she stayed up so late that she fell asleep with her school books still open. Life in their South Side Chicago neighborhood wasn't always easy. The area was full of life, kids playing outside, neighbors chatting on the steps. But it also had its challenges. Some streets felt unsafe, and schools didn't always have the best resources. Michelle saw how hard her parents worked to give her and Craig a safe and stable home. That made her want to work hard, too. She knew she had to make their sacrifices worth it. At school, Michelle stood out. She wasn't just smart. She was determined. She asked questions in class and always wanted to learn more. Teachers noticed her dedication, but not everyone encouraged her. Some people thought a girl like Michelle, from her background, shouldn't aim too high. "Why try for the best schools?" one teacher told her. Michelle felt hurt and confused. Was she wrong to dream big? But when she told her parents about the comment, Fraser's eyes grew serious. "Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can't do," he said firmly. "You're smart, and you belong anywhere you want to be." Those words gave Michelle the strength to keep going. Fraser's strength inspired Michelle in other ways, too. Even as his multiple sclerosis made life harder, he never let it stop him. Michelle would watch him come home from work, tired and in pain, but still smiling. He'd ask about her day, listen to her stories, and remind her to always try her best. Fraser's determination taught Michelle an important lesson. Hard work and perseverance can overcome almost anything. Marion, too, was a source of strength. She believed in her children and made sure they believed in themselves. Marian didn't just encourage Michelle. She also challenged her. When Michelle came home with a good grade, Marian would say, "That's great. Now, what's next?" She never let Michelle settle for being good enough. Marian's quiet push helped Michelle aim higher and higher. At home, the family had simple routines that brought them closer together. Every night, they sat down for dinner as a family. Fraser would ask, "What did you learn today?" Michelle and Craig would take turns sharing stories from school. Sometimes they'd laugh about funny moments. Other times, they'd talk about challenges they faced. Those dinners weren't just meals. They were lessons in love, support, and the importance of staying connected. Michelle also looked up to her brother Craig. He was a few years older than her and a star athlete. Craig worked hard at basketball, just like Michelle worked hard at her schoolwork. The two siblings encouraged each other. When Michelle felt nervous about a test or a project, Craig would tell her, "You've got this. You're the smartest person I know." Michelle admired Craig's confidence and tried to follow his example. But life wasn't always perfect. Michelle sometimes struggled with self-doubt. She wondered if she was good enough, if she could really achieve the dreams her parents encouraged her to chase. At school, she sometimes felt out of place. She didn't come from a rich family or a fancy neighborhood. But whenever she felt unsure, she thought about her father's steady determination and her mother's quiet belief in her. Those thoughts gave her the courage to keep going. One moment that stayed with Michelle happened when she was about 10 years old. Fraser's illness was getting worse, and walking up the stairs to their house had become almost impossible for him. One day, Michelle watched as her father slowly climbed the steps, his face tense with effort. When he finally reached the top, he smiled at her. "See? You don't quit," he said. Michelle felt a lump in her throat. She realized that her father wasn't just talking about stairs. He was teaching her how to face life's challenges. As Michelle grew older, she began to see just how special her parents were. They didn't have a lot of money, but they gave her and Craig something far more valuable: the belief that they could do anything. Fraser and Marian never doubted their children's potential. They reminded Michelle and Craig every day that they were smart, capable, and worthy of success. Michelle's family didn't just talk about values, they lived them. They showed her how to work hard, care for others, and believe in herself. Those lessons became the foundation of Michelle's life. Whether she was facing a tough class in college, balancing work and family, or standing in front of millions as the First Lady of the United States, Michelle carried her parents' words with her. Her journey was just beginning, but already Michelle knew how lucky she was. She had a family that believed in her. She had a father who showed her what strength looked like, and a mother who taught her the power of quiet resilience. Those lessons stayed with her, shaping her into the person she would become. And as she looked ahead to the future, Michelle felt ready to face whatever challenges might come her way. After all, she had her family's love and belief to guide her. 3. Top of the class. Michelle Robinson was a bright and determined student. From a young age, she loved learning and always wanted to do her best. In the classroom, she sat at the front, eager to answer questions and join discussions. Her teachers noticed her enthusiasm and talent. They often said, "Michelle is one of the best students we've ever had." But for Michelle, school wasn't just about getting good grades. It was about proving to herself that she could succeed. Even as a child, Michelle knew she wanted to go far in life. Her parents had always told her, "Education is the key to your future." She believed them. Every evening after dinner, Michelle would sit at the kitchen table with her books spread out in front of her. She studied for hours, even when she heard children playing outside or the sounds of the busy Chicago streets. "I'll play later," she thought. "Right now, I need to focus." But life in her neighborhood wasn't easy. Michelle often saw people who gave up on their dreams. Some kids didn't take school seriously. They skipped classes or got into trouble. Others said things like, "Why try so hard? People like us don't get into good colleges." Michelle refused to believe that. She knew that hard work could open doors, so she kept going, no matter what anyone else said. In high school, Michelle's determination only grew stronger. She attended Whitney M. Young Magnet High School, a school for gifted students. It was far from her home, so she had to wake up early every morning and travel across the city. The long bus rides were exhausting, but Michelle didn't complain. She used the time to think about her future. One day, she told herself, all this hard work will pay off. At Whitney Young, Michelle faced new challenges. The school was full of talented students, and the competition was tough. Michelle wasn't the only one who wanted to be at the top of the class. But instead of feeling discouraged, she pushed herself even harder. She stayed up late studying for tests, wrote and rewrote her essays, and asked her teachers for extra help when she needed it. Her classmates noticed her drive. Some admired her. Others thought she was trying too hard. But Michelle didn't care what they thought. She had a goal, and nothing was going to stop her. Still, there were moments when doubt crept in. One day, Michelle told a teacher about her dream of going to Princeton University, one of the most prestigious schools in the United States. Instead of encouraging her, the teacher shook her head. "I'm not sure Princeton is the right fit for you," the teacher said. "Maybe you should aim for something smaller." Michelle felt her chest tighten. Was the teacher right? Was she aiming too high? That evening, Michelle went home feeling sad and unsure. She told her parents what the teacher had said. Her father, Fraser, looked her straight in the eye and said, "Michelle, don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. You're just as smart as anyone else. You belong at Princeton if that's what you want." Her mother, Marion, nodded in agreement. "You worked hard for this," she said. "Now go show them what you can do." Their words gave Michelle the strength to keep going. Michelle poured herself into her schoolwork. Every assignment, every test, and every project became a step toward her dream. She also got involved in extracurricular activities. She joined clubs, helped her classmates, and showed leadership. Teachers who once doubted her began to see her potential. Her grades were excellent, and she was determined to prove she could succeed. When the time came to apply to colleges, Michelle felt both excited and nervous. The application process was long and challenging. She had to write essays, gather recommendations, and fill out forms. Michelle wanted to make sure every detail was perfect. She stayed up late at night, checking and rechecking her work. "This is my chance," she thought. "I can't mess it up." Finally, Michelle sent off her application to Princeton. She knew it was a long shot. Princeton was a school for the best of the best, and she worried that she might not stand out. Weeks turned into months as she waited for a reply. Every day, she checked the mail, her heart pounding with anticipation. What if they say no? She wondered. What will I do then? One cold afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from Princeton. Michelle stared at the envelope, afraid to open it. Her hands trembled as she tore it open and unfolded the letter. As her eyes scanned the page, she saw the words she'd been dreaming of. "Congratulations, you have been accepted." Michelle's heart leaped with joy. She screamed so loudly that her brother, Craig, ran into the room to see what had happened. Her parents hugged her tightly, their faces filled with pride. "We always knew you could do it," her father said, his voice full of emotion. For Michelle, it was more than just an acceptance letter. It was proof that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle. She had shown everyone, including herself, that she belonged at one of the best universities in the world. But as the excitement settled, Michelle began to feel nervous. Going to Princeton meant leaving her family, her friends, and the city she had always known. It also meant stepping into a world where most people didn't look like her or come from her background. She wondered, will I fit in? Will I be able to keep up? Her parents reminded her that she had everything she needed to succeed. "You've faced challenges before," her mother said. "You'll face this one too." With their support, Michelle packed her bags and prepared for the next chapter of her journey. She was scared, but also excited. Princeton was a new world, and Michelle was ready to take it on. As she boarded the bus to Princeton, Michelle thought about how far she had come. She remembered the long bus rides to Whitney Young, the nights spent studying at the kitchen table, and the moments when she doubted herself. Each challenge had made her stronger. Now she was ready for the next step. Michelle's journey to Princeton wasn't just about getting into a prestigious school. It was about proving that she belonged, no matter what anyone said. It was about showing herself and the world that a girl from the South Side of Chicago could achieve anything with hard work and determination. Her story was just beginning, and Michelle knew there were even greater challenges ahead. But as the bus pulled away, she felt a sense of hope and excitement. She was ready to face whatever came next. 4. Princeton, a new world. When Michelle arrived at Princeton University, everything felt different. The campus was huge, with tall buildings and wide-open spaces. The students walked confidently, their voices filling the air with lively conversations. But as Michelle looked around, she felt a pang of uncertainty. Most of the students didn't look like her. They came from wealthy families, wore expensive clothes, and spoke about things Michelle had never experienced. She felt out of place, like she didn't belong. In her classes, Michelle worked hard to keep up. The professors used big words, and some of the students seemed to already know so much. Michelle often felt like the only person who didn't understand. She doubted herself. Maybe they were right, she thought. Maybe I don't belong here. The doubts crept in slowly but powerfully, whispering in her mind during quiet moments. Michelle also missed her family. In Chicago, she had always felt safe and supported. Her parents were only a room away, and Craig was always there to make her laugh. At Princeton, she was on her own. The dining halls were loud, but Michelle sometimes ate alone, feeling the ache of homesickness. She called her parents often, her father's steady voice reminding her, "You're strong, Michelle. You've got this." Still, adjusting to Princeton wasn't easy. Many of her classmates came from private schools or had parents who were doctors or lawyers. They talked about vacations in Europe, country clubs, and life experiences Michelle couldn't relate to. Some of them didn't seem to notice her at all. Others asked questions that stung, like, "How did you get into Princeton?" Or, "Are you here on a special program?" Michelle felt like she constantly had to prove herself, not just as a student, but as a person who deserved to be there. But Michelle didn't give up. She thought about her parents and their sacrifices. She thought about her father's words, "You can do anything." Slowly, she began to push through the discomfort. She stayed up late in the library, reading and rereading her textbooks. She took notes in every class and asked questions, even when she felt nervous. The more she worked, the more she realized something important. She was just as smart as anyone else at Princeton. To find her place, Michelle joined groups and activities that felt meaningful to her. One of those was the Third World Center, a place where students of color gathered to share their experiences. For the first time, Michelle found people who understood what she was going through. They talked about the same struggles she was facing, feeling out of place, dealing with stereotypes, and missing home. Those conversations gave her strength. They reminded her that she wasn't alone. At the Third World Center, Michelle also discovered her ability to lead. She started organizing events and helping other students feel welcome. Her confidence grew as she realized she could make a difference. Slowly, she found her voice, speaking up in discussions and standing tall in front of her peers. Princeton was still challenging, but now Michelle felt more prepared to face it. Her classes, while tough, began to inspire her. Michelle loved learning about how systems worked, politics, government, and the way decisions were made. She started thinking about how she could use her education to help others. Her professors noticed her curiosity and drive. They encouraged her to think big, even when the path forward wasn't clear. Michelle also made a few close friends who supported her through the ups and downs. Together, they studied late into the night, laughed over silly jokes, and helped each other navigate the pressures of college life. Those friendships became a source of comfort and joy, reminding Michelle that she didn't have to do it all alone. One day, Michelle attended a lecture that changed her perspective. The speaker talked about how people from different backgrounds could bring unique strengths to the world. For the first time, Michelle began to see her own background not as a limitation, but as an advantage. She realized that growing up on the south side of Chicago had given her resilience, determination, and a deep understanding of people. Those qualities, she thought, could take her far. But Princeton wasn't just about academics. It was also about discovering who she was. Michelle learned to navigate a world that often felt foreign to her. She found ways to stand tall in spaces where she felt invisible. She began to believe in her own worth, even when others doubted it. Every challenge she faced made her stronger, more determined, and more focused on her future. As her time at Princeton went on, Michelle thought more and more about what kind of person she wanted to be. She didn't just want a career that paid well. She wanted to make a difference. She wanted to help people, especially those who, like her, had faced challenges and doubted their own potential. Princeton opened her eyes to new possibilities, even if the path forward still felt uncertain. When Michelle graduated, she looked out at the crowd of proud families and classmates. She thought about everything she had overcome, the self-doubt, the loneliness, and the feeling of being different. She thought about her parents back in Chicago, who had always believed in her, even when she wasn't sure she believed in herself. And she thought about her own journey, from the little girl in the small bedroom on the south side of Chicago to the confident young woman standing on the stage at one of the best universities in the world. Princeton had been a new world, full of challenges and unfamiliar faces, but it had also been a place of growth. Michelle left with more than a diploma. She left with a stronger sense of who she was and what she could achieve. She had learned that being different wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. And as she stepped into the next chapter of her life, Michelle felt ready for whatever came next. 5. Harvard and hard work. After graduating from Princeton, Michelle faced another big decision. Where would she go next? She wanted to make a difference in the world, and she believed that becoming a lawyer could help her do that. So, she set her sights on Harvard Law School, one of the most prestigious law schools in the world. Getting in was a huge achievement, but Michelle knew the hard part was just beginning. When she arrived at Harvard, she felt the same nervousness she had felt at Princeton. The campus was full of confident ambitious students who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Many of them had parents who were lawyers, judges, or politicians. They spoke about their internships at big law firms and their plans for the future. Once again, Michelle felt like she didn't quite belong. She wondered, can I really do this? The workload at Harvard was intense. The books were thick, filled with complex legal language that Michelle had to read and understand. The classes were long, and the professors expected students to be ready with answers to difficult questions. Michelle often felt overwhelmed. Some days, she sat at her desk late into the night, staring at the pages in front of her and feeling like she was drowning in information. But Michelle had a secret weapon, her determination. She remembered her father's words, "You don't quit just because something is hard," and her mother's constant encouragement, "You're smart, Michelle. You've got this." Whenever doubt crept in, she held on to those words like a lifeline. They reminded her that she had already overcome so much and that she could keep going, no matter how tough things got. Michelle developed a routine to help her stay on track. She woke up early to review her notes before class, spent hours in the library after lectures, and joined study groups with classmates. She wasn't afraid to ask questions when she didn't understand something. Slowly but surely, Michelle began to feel more confident. The legal concepts that had once seemed impossible started to make sense. She realized that hard work could bridge the gap between doubt and success. But Harvard wasn't just about academics. It was also a place where Michelle started to think deeply about the kind of lawyer and person she wanted to be. Many of her classmates talked about working for big law firms after graduation, earning large salaries, and climbing the corporate ladder. That path didn't feel right to Michelle. She wanted her work to mean something. She wanted to help people, especially those who didn't have access to opportunities like the ones she had fought for. One of the most important lessons Michelle learned at Harvard was about resilience. There were moments when she failed, when she didn't understand a case or struggled to keep up with the fast pace of a class. But instead of giving up, she used those moments to grow. Every challenge became a chance to learn something new. And with every small victory, her confidence grew stronger. Harvard also introduced Michelle to a diverse group of people who inspired her. She met students from all over the world, each with their own stories and dreams. She learned about different cultures, perspectives, and ways of thinking. These interactions broadened her view of the world and helped her see how interconnected people's struggles and hopes could be. It was a reminder that the work she wanted to do as a lawyer could have a real impact on people's lives. Despite the challenges, there were moments of joy and triumph. Michelle celebrated her small victories, like finally mastering a difficult legal concept or receiving praise from a tough professor. She also found strength in her friendships. Her classmates became her support system, and together they faced the highs and lows of law school. Late-night study sessions often turned into moments of laughter and bonding. Those friendships helped Michelle feel less alone, even during the most stressful times. As the years went by, Michelle's hard work began to pay off. She excelled in her classes and earned the respect of her professors and peers. She started to see herself not just as a student, but as a future lawyer who could make a difference. Her dream of helping others felt closer than ever. Graduation day was a moment of both pride and reflection. As Michelle walked across the stage to receive her law degree, she thought about everything it had taken to get there. She thought about her father, who had always believed in her, even as his illness made his own life so difficult. She thought about her mother, who had shown her the power of quiet strength. And she thought about herself, the little girl from the south side of Chicago who had dared to dream big and work hard. The crowd cheered as Michelle held her diploma in her hands. It felt like more than just a piece of paper. It was proof of her resilience, her determination, and her belief in herself. It was a symbol of everything she had overcome and everything she was capable of achieving. But Michelle knew her journey wasn't over. Graduation was just the beginning. Now she had to decide what kind of lawyer she wanted to be and how she could use her skills to make a real difference. She felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The path ahead wasn't entirely clear, but Michelle was ready to face it. Harvard had tested Michelle in ways she had never imagined. It had pushed her to her limits and forced her to grow. But it had also given her the tools she needed to succeed in the next chapter of her life. As she left the campus for the last time, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for her family, her education, and the lessons she had learned along the way. Michelle was no longer the unsure student who had arrived at Harvard wondering if she belonged. She had proven to herself and to the world that she did. She was ready to take on whatever challenges came next. With her law degree in hand and her parents' words in her heart, Michelle stepped into the future, determined to make a difference in the world. Before we begin Chapter 6, a quick note for our listeners. You're currently listening to this audiobook on WooEnglish. Remember, this content is specially made for WooEnglish listeners only. If you're hearing it on any other channel, it may be a violation of WooEnglish's rights. Please ensure you're tuned into the right source to fully enjoy and respect this audiobook journey. Now, let's continue the story. 6. Meeting Barack. After graduating from Harvard Law School, Michelle returned to her hometown of Chicago. She was ready to start her career and make her mark on the world. Michelle accepted a job at a prestigious law firm called Sidley Austin. It was a big opportunity, a chance to work with some of the best lawyers in the country, but it was also a lot of pressure. Michelle wanted to prove that she deserved to be there. She threw herself into her work, taking on complicated cases and working long hours. Michelle was focused and determined, but she sometimes wondered if she was truly happy. The law firm was impressive, and the pay was good, but something felt missing. She wanted her work to have a deeper meaning. Still, she pushed those thoughts aside and stayed committed to doing her best. One summer, the law firm hired a young law student to work as an intern. His name was Barack Obama. Michelle heard about him before she even met him. People in the office were already talking about him. "He's so smart," one person said. "And so confident," another added. Michelle wasn't impressed, yet. She had seen plenty of people with big talk and big ideas. What mattered to her was action. When Michelle finally met Barack, her first impression was that he was different. He had a calm, steady confidence that made him stand out. He wasn't loud or flashy, but when he spoke, people listened. Barack had big dreams about changing the world, and he spoke about them with such passion that it was hard not to be intrigued. Still, Michelle wasn't sure what to make of him. She had seen plenty of people talk about making a difference, but few actually followed through. At first, Michelle kept things professional. As one of the firm's lawyers, she was technically Barack's mentor, and she took that role seriously. She gave him advice, reviewed his work, and helped him adjust to the fast-paced world of corporate law. Barack, however, was not shy about showing his interest in Michelle. He admired her intelligence, her strength, and her focus. He asked her out to lunch, and then to dinner. But Michelle wasn't sure. She had her reasons. For one, she didn't like the idea of dating someone she worked with. It felt unprofessional. And two, Barack's life seemed so different from hers. He had grown up in Hawaii and Indonesia, far from the busy streets of Chicago. His childhood was filled with experiences Michelle could barely imagine. Would they even have anything in common? But Barack didn't give up. He was patient, kind, and persistent. Over time, Michelle began to see something special in him. Barack wasn't just smart. He was deeply thoughtful. He cared about people and wanted to make their lives better. He talked about justice and equality in a way that made Michelle feel hopeful. He wasn't just dreaming. He was planning. He had a vision for the future and a quiet determination to make it real. One day, after much hesitation, Michelle finally agreed to go on a date with Barack. He took her to an art museum, and they spent hours walking and talking. Michelle was surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. They laughed about small things and debated big ideas. Barack wasn't trying to impress her. He was just being himself. And that was what impressed her most. As their relationship grew, Michelle began to see Barack's heart. He wasn't like anyone she had ever met. He was caring and thoughtful, but also ambitious and determined. He wanted to make a difference in the world, not for fame or fortune, but because he truly believed in helping others. Barack challenged Michelle to think differently, to dream bigger, and in turn, she challenged him to stay grounded and focused. Their love story wasn't perfect. They were both ambitious and busy, and balancing their careers with their relationship wasn't always easy. Michelle was still figuring out what she wanted from her life and career, and Barack was already thinking about how he could create change through politics. But they supported each other, even when the path forward wasn't clear. Michelle's family quickly saw what she saw in Barack. Her parents, Fraser and Marion, admired his kindness and his sense of purpose. Her brother, Craig, joked that he knew Barack was special when he played basketball with him and saw his skills on the court. For Michelle, it wasn't just about the way Barack treated her. It was about the way he treated everyone. He was respectful, thoughtful, and deeply committed to his beliefs. As their relationship deepened, Michelle began to see a future with Barack. She saw a man who would not only stand by her side, but also inspire her to be her best self. Together, they dreamed about what their lives could look like. They talked about family, careers, and the kind of world they wanted to help create. Barack's dreams became Michelle's dreams, and her strength became his foundation. Eventually, Barack proposed to Michelle in a way that was simple but heartfelt. He knew that she didn't care about grand gestures or fancy displays. What mattered was the love they shared and the partnership they were building. When Michelle said yes, it wasn't just a promise to love and support each other. It was a promise to face whatever challenges life threw at them together. Their journey as a couple was just beginning, but already Michelle could see that their partnership was something special. Barack wasn't just her partner in love, he was her partner in life. He encouraged her to follow her passions and to believe in herself, just as she did for him. Looking back, Michelle often thought about how unexpected their meeting had been. She hadn't been looking for love when Barack walked into her life. But sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them. Their love story wasn't just about romance. It was about two people finding each other and realizing they could do more together than they ever could alone. Michelle didn't know it then, but her life with Barack would take her on a journey she could never have imagined. Together, they would face challenges, make sacrifices, and work to create a better world. And it all began in that law firm in Chicago, when a young lawyer named Barack Obama walked in and changed everything. 7. Love, family, and choices. Michelle and Barack's wedding was a joyful celebration of love, family, and hope for the future. Surrounded by friends and loved ones, they made promises to support each other through whatever challenges life might bring. It was a beautiful moment, filled with laughter and dreams. But life, as they soon learned, was not always simple. Michelle and Barack started their married life in Chicago, full of hope and determination. They were deeply in love, but they also had big dreams. Barack was passionate about politics. He wanted to make a difference in the lives of others by improving communities and bringing people together. Michelle admired his vision, but she also knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Politics demanded long hours, travel, and uncertainty. It meant that Barack would often be away, working on campaigns or meeting with people. Could their relationship withstand the strain? Michelle, too, was ambitious. She loved her work and wanted a career that was meaningful. After leaving the corporate law firm, she had found a new passion in public service. She worked for organizations that helped young people and families, trying to improve lives in her community. It was fulfilling work, but it was also exhausting. balancing her career with her responsibilities at home wasn't easy, and she often felt like she had to choose between her personal goals and supporting Barack's dreams. Things became even more complicated when Michelle and Barack decided to start a family. In 1998, their first daughter, Malia, was born. Michelle was overjoyed, but becoming a mother changed everything. Suddenly, her days were filled with diapers, sleepless nights, and the endless needs of a newborn. She loved being a mom, but it was hard to juggle her career, her marriage, and her new role as a parent. Just as she was starting to adjust, their second daughter, Sasha, arrived in 2001. Raising two young children while Barack pursued his political career was a challenge unlike anything Michelle had faced before. Barack's work often took him far from home. He spent long days in meetings or on the road, leaving Michelle to handle most of the parenting responsibilities. There were times when she felt overwhelmed and lonely. She missed the days when they could spend time together, just the two of them. Is this what our life will always be like? She wondered. But Michelle was strong and resourceful. She knew she couldn't do it all alone, so she reached out for help. Her mother, Marion, became a crucial support system, stepping in to help with the children when Michelle needed to focus on work or take a break. Having her mother nearby gave Michelle the strength to keep going, even on the hardest days. Still, there were sacrifices. Michelle sometimes had to put her own dreams on hold to support Barack's. When he decided to run for the Illinois State Senate, it was a big decision for their family. Campaigning took up even more of his time, and the demands of politics grew heavier. But Michelle believed in Barack's vision. She saw how deeply he cared about making a difference, and she wanted to support him. There were moments of doubt, though. Michelle often found herself asking, "How much more can I give?" She worried about how their busy lives would affect their daughters. She wanted Malia and Sasha to grow up in a stable, loving home, not one filled with stress and endless schedules. Finding the right balance was a constant struggle. Through it all, Michelle and Barack worked hard to keep their relationship strong. They made time for each other, even when it seemed impossible. Late at night, after the children were asleep, they would sit together and talk about their hopes, fears, and dreams. Those moments reminded them why they had fallen in love in the first place. Michelle also found ways to create a sense of normalcy for her daughters. She made sure that family dinners were a priority, even if it meant eating late. She encouraged Malia and Sasha to share their thoughts and feelings, creating an environment where they felt safe and loved. Michelle wanted her daughters to know that, no matter how busy their parents were, they were always the most important part of their lives. As Barack's political career grew, so did the challenges. When he ran for the U.S. Senate in 2004, the campaign was even more demanding than before. Barack spent weeks traveling across Illinois, meeting voters and giving speeches. Michelle was proud of him, but the distance was hard. She sometimes felt like a single parent, managing everything at home while he was away. But then something extraordinary happened. Barack delivered a speech at the Democratic National Convention that electrified the nation. People across the country started paying attention to him. They saw what Michelle had always known, that he was a leader who could inspire hope and bring people together. Suddenly, their lives changed. Barack wasn't just a local politician anymore. He was a national figure. The spotlight brought new opportunities, but also new pressures. Michelle had to adjust to the idea of sharing her husband with the world. It wasn't easy, but she remained grounded. She focused on her daughters and her work, trying to keep their lives as normal as possible. This is our life now, she thought. We'll make it work. Michelle also began to step into her own role as a partner to a rising political leader. She gave speeches, met with community groups, and shared her own story with people. Her natural warmth and intelligence drew people to her. They saw her as someone who understood their struggles and cared deeply about their future. Despite the challenges, Michelle and Barack remained committed to each other and their family. They faced tough choices, made sacrifices, and worked through difficult times. But they also shared moments of joy, watching their daughters grow, celebrating milestones together, and dreaming about the future. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was filled with love, resilience, and a shared belief in making the world a better place. Michelle often thought about how far they had come, from a small office in Chicago where they first met, to a life filled with both challenges and possibilities. No matter what lay ahead, she knew they would face it together, as a family. 8. Becoming First Lady. When Barack Obama announced he was running for President of the United States in 2007, Michelle felt a mix of emotions. She was proud of him and believed in his vision, but she also knew what this would mean for their family. A presidential campaign would be unlike anything they had faced before. It would be demanding, exhausting, and intensely public. Michelle worried about how it would affect their daughters, Malia and Sasha, who were still so young. She also worried about stepping into a role she had never imagined for herself, that of a potential First Lady. The campaign was a whirlwind. Michelle traveled across the country, speaking to crowds, meeting voters, and sharing her family's story. She talked about Barack's values, their love for each other, and their hopes for America. At first, Michelle felt nervous standing in front of so many people. Speaking to large audiences wasn't something she had done before, and the spotlight felt overwhelming. But as time went on, she found her voice. She spoke from the heart, and people listened. They saw in her someone who was real, someone who understood their struggles and believed in their dreams. Michelle also had to balance her role on the campaign trail with being a mom. She wanted Malia and Sasha to have as normal a childhood as possible, even as their father became a national figure. Michelle worked hard to protect them from the pressures of the campaign. She made sure they still had time to play, go to school, and enjoy being kids. No matter what happens, she told herself, family comes first. The campaign wasn't easy. There were long days, late nights, and constant travel. Michelle missed home, and she missed the quiet moments with her family. The media also put her under intense scrutiny. Every word she said, every outfit she wore, was analyzed and criticized. At times, the negativity was hurtful, but Michelle reminded herself of why she was there. This isn't about me, she thought. This is about helping Barack make a difference. In November 2008, after months of hard work and uncertainty, the results of the election were announced. Barack Obama had won. He would become the 44th President of the United States and the first African American to hold the office. It was a historic moment, one that brought tears of joy to people across the country. Michelle stood on stage with her husband that night, holding their daughter's hands. She felt a deep sense of pride, not just in Barack, but in the millions of people who had come together to make this moment possible. But as the celebration ended, reality set in. Michelle realized that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't fully imagine. Being the First Lady of the United States wasn't just a title. It was a responsibility. She would be expected to inspire millions, represent the country, and take on important causes. At the same time, she had to protect her family from the intense pressures of life in the White House. It was exciting, but also terrifying. Moving into the White House was surreal. The historic building, with its grand rooms and famous history, felt more like a museum than a home. Michelle was determined to make it a comfortable and loving space for her family. She worked with the staff to create bedrooms for Malia and Sasha that felt warm and personal. She wanted the girls to feel like the White House was their home, not just a place where their dad worked. As First Lady, Michelle quickly realized that she had a powerful platform. People looked up to her and listened to what she had to say. But Michelle didn't want to just be a symbol. She wanted to make a real difference. She thought about the values her parents had taught her: hard work, education, and community. She decided to use her position to focus on causes that mattered deeply to her. One of Michelle's first initiatives was Let's Move, a campaign to fight childhood obesity and encourage healthy living. She wanted to help kids across America eat better, exercise more, and live healthier lives. Michelle planted a vegetable garden at the White House, inviting children to help her grow fresh fruits and vegetables. She visited schools, spoke to parents, and worked with organizations to improve school lunches. Her energy and enthusiasm inspired people across the country to think about their health in new ways. Michelle also cared deeply about education, especially for girls. She believed that every child, no matter where they came from, deserved a chance to succeed. She traveled to schools, met with students, and encouraged them to dream big. She reminded them that she, too, had come from a modest background. "If I can do it," she told them, "so can you." Her words gave hope to young people who thought their dreams were out of reach. But being in the public eye wasn't always easy. Michelle had to navigate constant criticism and high expectations. Some people judged her unfairly because of her background or her outspokenness. At times, the negativity felt overwhelming. But Michelle didn't let it stop her. She stayed true to herself, focusing on her work and the people she wanted to help. At the same time, Michelle worked hard to protect her family's privacy. She wanted Malia and Sasha to have a normal childhood, even in the most extraordinary circumstances. She set clear boundaries with the media, keeping her daughters out of the spotlight as much as possible. She also made sure that family dinners were a priority, no matter how busy their schedules were. For Michelle, being a mom always came first. Over the years, Michelle grew into her role as First Lady. She spoke at events, met with world leaders, and represented the United States with grace and dignity. But she also stayed grounded. She never forgot where she came from or the values that had shaped her. Whether she was speaking at an international summit or helping Malia and Sasha with their homework, Michelle remained true to herself. Looking back on her time as First Lady, Michelle often said that it was both the greatest honor and the biggest challenge of her life. She had faced moments of doubt, fear, and exhaustion, but she had also experienced incredible joy and fulfillment. She had used her platform to inspire others, champion important causes, and show the world the power of hope and determination. Through it all, Michelle never lost sight of what mattered most: her family, her values, and her belief in the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Her journey as First Lady was a testament to her strength, resilience, and commitment to making a difference. And while the challenges were great, so were the rewards. Michelle had not only supported Barack's vision, she had created her own legacy, one that would continue to inspire for generations to come. 9. A voice for healthy living. When Michelle Obama became the First Lady, she knew she wanted to use her position to help others. She thought carefully about the kind of difference she could make. One issue stood out to her: children's health. Michelle had noticed a troubling trend. Many kids in the United States were struggling with obesity and health problems related to poor eating habits and lack of exercise. She decided to do something about it. Michelle's concern started with her own family. When Malia and Sasha were little, Michelle realized that her busy schedule sometimes made it hard to plan healthy meals. Fast food and processed snacks were quick and convenient, but they weren't the best choices. Michelle worked with her family doctor to find ways to improve their eating habits. She started cooking more fresh meals at home, adding more fruits and vegetables to their plates, and encouraging the girls to be more active. The results were amazing. Her daughters felt healthier and more energized. Michelle realized that these small changes could make a big difference. She wanted to share this message with families across the country. In 2010, Michelle launched the Let's Move campaign, a nationwide effort to fight childhood obesity and promote healthy living. Her goal was simple but ambitious: to help children grow up healthier so they could reach their full potential. She believed that if families, schools, and communities worked together, they could create a brighter future for kids. One of the first steps in the Let's Move campaign was to raise awareness. Michelle spoke to parents, teachers, and community leaders about the importance of healthy eating and regular exercise. She explained that childhood obesity wasn't just about weight, it was about overall health. Kids who ate better and stayed active were less likely to develop serious illnesses like diabetes and heart disease. They also did better in school and felt more confident. Michelle didn't just talk about these ideas. She led by example. At the White House, she planted a vegetable garden on the South Lawn. It wasn't just any garden. It was a vibrant, thriving space filled with fresh produce like tomatoes, lettuce, and carrots. Michelle invited children from local schools to help her plant, tend, and harvest the garden. She wanted them to see where their food came from and learn how fun and rewarding it could be to grow their own meals. The White House garden became a symbol of the Let's Move campaign. It showed that healthy eating could be simple and enjoyable. Kids who visited the garden learned how to cook with fresh ingredients, turning vegetables they had picked themselves into delicious meals. Michelle's enthusiasm was infectious. She laughed, joked, and worked alongside the children, making the experience fun and memorable. Many kids left the garden excited to try new foods at home. But Michelle knew that a garden alone wouldn't solve the problem. She wanted to make healthy food accessible to all families, especially those in low-income communities where fresh produce was often hard to find. She partnered with grocery stores, farmers, and local organizations to bring healthier options to underserved neighborhoods. She also worked with schools to improve lunch programs, replacing greasy processed foods with fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Her message was clear. Every child deserves access to nutritious meals. Exercise was another key part of the Let's Move campaign. Michelle encouraged kids to get active, whether by playing sports, dancing, or simply running around outside. She reminded them that exercise didn't have to be boring. It could be fun. To prove it, she participated in events that showed her playful side. She danced with kids during school visits, jumped rope with students, and even did push-ups on live TV. Her energy and excitement inspired millions of children to get moving. Michelle also partnered with celebrities, athletes, and other public figures to spread her message. Famous chefs taught kids how to cook healthy meals. Professional athletes led fitness challenges. Even cartoon characters joined the campaign, making healthy living appealing and relatable to children. Michelle knew that by involving popular role models, she could reach kids in a way that was both fun and impactful. Despite her efforts, Michelle faced criticism. Some people thought she was trying to tell families how to raise their children. Others argued that the government shouldn't be involved in people's food choices. But Michelle didn't let the negativity stop her. She stayed focused on her mission, reminding herself of the families she had met and the stories they had shared. Parents told her how the campaign had helped their children lose weight, feel better, and gain confidence. Those stories kept her going. Over time, the Let's Move campaign began to show results. Schools across the country adopted healthier lunch menus. Communities built parks and playgrounds to encourage outdoor activity. Families started cooking more meals at home, using fresh ingredients and trying new recipes. The national conversation about food and fitness began to shift, with more people recognizing the importance of healthy living. For Michelle, the most rewarding part of the campaign was seeing the impact on children's lives. She loved hearing from kids who had started their own gardens, joined sports teams, or discovered a new love for cooking. Their enthusiasm and success stories reminded her why she had started the campaign in the first place. This is about giving every child a chance to live their best life, she often said. As the years went on, the Let's Move campaign became one of Michelle's most significant accomplishments as First Lady. It wasn't just about promoting healthier habits, it was about empowering families to take control of their health and their futures. Michelle had shown that small changes could add up to big results, and she had inspired millions of people to take those first steps. Looking back, Michelle felt proud of what she'd achieved. She knew there was still work to be done, but she also knew that the seeds she had planted, both in the White House garden and in the hearts of families across the country, would continue to grow. She had found her voice as a champion for healthy living, and her message would resonate for years to come. 10. Helping girls around the world. Michelle Obama has always believed in the power of education. From her own childhood on the South Side of Chicago, she knew how important it was to work hard and dream big. Education had opened doors for her, leading her to Princeton, Harvard, and a life she had once only imagined. Now, as First Lady of the United States, she wanted to help others, especially girls, experience the same opportunities she had. She knew that when girls were educated, they could change not only their own lives, but also their families and communities. Michelle was heartbroken when she learned that millions of girls around the world were not in school. Some families couldn't afford to send their daughters to school, while others didn't believe that girls needed an education. In some countries, it was even dangerous for girls to go to school. Michelle thought about all the times she had felt out of place or doubted herself, and how education had helped her find her voice. She wanted every girl to know that her dreams mattered. In 2015, Michelle launched an initiative called Let Girls Learn. The goal was to help girls around the world get the education they deserved. It wasn't just about building schools. It was about breaking down the barriers that kept girls from learning. Michelle worked with governments, organizations, and community leaders to find solutions. But she also knew that real change came from inspiring the girls themselves. Michelle traveled to many countries, meeting girls and listening to their stories. In Liberia, she met a group of young women who had faced incredible challenges. Some had to walk miles every day to get to school. Others had been told by their families that education was not for them. Yet these girls refused to give up. They worked hard, studied late into the night, and dreamed of becoming doctors, teachers, and leaders. Michelle was moved by their determination. You are so strong, she told them, and you deserve to be here. In Cambodia, Michelle visited a small village where girls had recently started attending school. She sat with them in their classroom, watching as they proudly showed her what they had learned. Some of the girls told her that they wanted to grow up to be like her. Michelle smiled, but her heart ached. She knew that many of them would face obstacles she could hardly imagine. But she also knew that with education, they could overcome those challenges. Never stop learning, she told them. You are smart. You are capable. And you can achieve anything. Michelle's words resonated with girls everywhere. She didn't speak to them as a famous first lady, but as someone who understood their struggles. She shared her own story, how she had grown up in a small house, doubted herself, and worked hard to prove she belonged. She reminded them that success wasn't about where you started. It was about where you were going. Michelle also encouraged boys and men to support girls' education. She spoke to fathers, brothers, and community leaders, telling them that educated girls could change the world. When you lift up a girl, she said, you lift up her family. You lift up her entire community. She challenged them to see girls not as burdens, but as valuable members of society with the potential to do great things. One of Michelle's most powerful moments came during a speech in London. Standing in front of a room filled with young women, she spoke about the power of education and the importance of believing in yourself. There is no boy at this school smarter than you, she told them. The audience erupted in cheers, and Michelle's words became a rallying cry for girls around the world. But Michelle's work wasn't always easy. She faced criticism from people who thought she should focus on issues closer to home. Others doubted that one person could make a difference on such a large global issue. Michelle listened to their concerns, but didn't let them stop her. She believed in the girls she met and knew that even small changes could have a big impact. Michelle's efforts inspired governments and organizations to invest in girls' education. Schools were built, scholarships were provided, and programs were created to help girls stay in school. Slowly, the numbers began to change. More girls were going to school, graduating, and pursuing careers. But the true impact of Michelle's work could be seen in the faces of the girls she inspired. They stood taller, spoke louder, and dreamed bigger because of her encouragement. One of the things Michelle loved most was hearing from girls who had been inspired by her message. They sent her letters, telling her about their goals and thanking her for believing in them. Some even shared how her words had helped them through tough times. Michelle treasured these letters, seeing them as proof that her work was making a difference. Michelle's commitment to girls' education continued even after she left the White House. She wrote books, gave speeches, and partnered with organizations to keep the momentum going. For Michelle, this work was deeply personal. She saw herself in every girl she met, girls with big dreams and the courage to chase them, even when the odds were against them. Looking back, Michelle often said that helping girls around the world was one of the most meaningful parts of her role as First Lady. It wasn't just about giving them an education. It was about giving them hope, confidence, and the belief that they could shape their own futures. Michelle knew that when girls were given the chance to learn, they could achieve extraordinary things. As Michelle reflected on her journey, she felt grateful for the opportunities she had been given. But she also knew that her success wouldn't mean anything if she didn't use it to lift others up. She hoped that her story would remind girls everywhere that they were capable of greatness. "You are the future," she told them, "and the world needs your light." 12. The power of hope. When Michelle Obama left the White House in 2017, her life changed once again. For 8 years, she had been the First Lady of the United States, a role filled with challenges and opportunities. She had inspired millions, championed important causes, and supported her family through historic moments. But now, she was stepping into a new chapter, one where she could share her story in her own words. Michelle knew that her journey from a small house on the south side of Chicago to the White House was one that many people could relate to. It was a story of hard work, self-doubt, resilience, and hope. She wanted to show people that behind all the public appearances, she was still the same girl who had shared a tiny bedroom with her brother, Craig, and dreamed of a bigger world. In 2018, Michelle published her memoir, Becoming. The book was more than just a reflection on her time as First Lady. It was a deeply personal account of her entire life. She wrote about her childhood, her education, her marriage, her struggles, and her triumphs. She shared the lessons she had learned along the way, hoping to inspire others to find their own voices and tell their own stories. Writing the book wasn't easy. Michelle spent countless hours reflecting on her life, thinking about the moments that had shaped her and the choices she had made. Some memories brought joy, while others brought pain. But she poured her heart into every page, determined to be honest and real. She wanted her readers to see her not just as a public figure, but as a person. Someone who had faced challenges, made mistakes, and kept moving forward. When Becoming was released, it quickly became a phenomenon. Millions of people around the world lined up to buy the book, eager to learn more about Michelle's journey. The memoir broke records, becoming one of the best-selling books of all time. Readers from all walks of life found themselves in her story. They saw their own struggles, hopes, and dreams reflected in her words. But for Michelle, the most meaningful part of the experience was connecting with her readers. She embarked on a worldwide book tour, speaking to packed arenas and intimate groups alike. Everywhere she went, people came to hear her speak. They brought their own stories, sharing how Michelle's journey had inspired them to dream bigger, work harder, and believe in themselves. During her talks, Michelle often spoke about the power of hope. She reminded people that no matter where they came from or what challenges they faced, they had the ability to shape their own futures. Your story matters, she told them. Never stop believing in yourself. Her words were met with cheers, tears, and standing ovations. People left her events feeling uplifted and empowered, ready to take on the world. Michelle's message resonated especially deeply with young people. She encouraged them to stay curious, work hard, and never let fear hold them back. It's okay to feel scared, she said. I've felt scared too. But courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about moving forward even when you are. Her honesty and vulnerability made her a role model for a new generation. She also spoke openly about the importance of community. Michelle believed that no one could succeed alone. She talked about how her parents, Fraser and Marion, had shaped her values and taught her the importance of hard work and kindness. She shared how Barack's unwavering belief in her had given her strength during difficult times, and she reminded her audience that leaning on others wasn't a weakness. It was a source of strength. As Michelle's book tour continued, she heard countless stories from her readers. There was the single mother who had gone back to school after being inspired by Michelle's story. There was the young girl who had been afraid to speak up in class but found her courage after hearing Michelle's words. And there were men and women of all ages who had found hope in her journey, seeing in her the possibilities within themselves. Michelle's impact didn't stop with her book. She continued to advocate for the causes she cared about, from education to health to equality. She partnered with organizations to create opportunities for young people, particularly girls, to pursue their dreams. She launched programs to help students succeed in college and shared resources to promote healthy living. Michelle's commitment to making a difference never wavered. Through it all, Michelle remained grounded. She often joked about how life after the White House was both liberating and strange. She could go shopping without Secret Service agents trailing her, but she also had to learn how to make her own toast again. Her humor and humility reminded people that she was still the same Michelle, relatable, down to earth, and deeply connected to the people she served. As time went on, Michelle reflected on the legacy she wanted to leave. She hoped her story would remind people that greatness wasn't about fame or power. It was about making a positive impact on the lives of others. She believed that every person had the ability to create change, no matter how small their actions might seem. Change happens when ordinary people come together, she said. It starts with kindness, compassion, and the belief that we can do better. For Michelle, becoming was more than just a title. It was a way of life. She believed that everyone was always growing, learning, and evolving. She often said that she was still becoming the person she wanted to be, and she encouraged others to embrace their own journeys. We're all a work in progress, she told her readers, and that's okay. As she looked to the future, Michelle remained hopeful. She knew that the challenges facing the world were great, but she also saw the incredible potential in people, especially young people. Their passion, energy, and determination gave her faith that a better world was possible. "Keep believing in yourselves," she told them, "and never stop working for the future you want to see." Michelle's journey, from a little girl in Chicago to a global icon, was a testament to the power of hope, resilience, and courage. She had faced challenges, endured criticism, and overcome self-doubt. But through it all, she had stayed true to herself and her values. Her story reminded people that no dream was too big, no obstacle too great, and no voice too small to make a difference. As she signed copies of her book, hugged her readers, and spoke to crowds around the world, Michelle felt a deep sense of gratitude. She was grateful for the people who had supported her, for the opportunities she had been given, and for the chance to share her story. Most of all, she was grateful for the hope that had guided her through every chapter of her life. Because in the end, that was what Michelle wanted to share with the world: the power of hope.